Hi, I'm Dr. João Carapinha from Carapinha & Company. I hope you're well. This is a video leading up to the workshop that CNC is arranging in collaboration with Marefa Management in Dubai, UAE. The title of the workshop is Market Access Strategies to Boost Access to Innovative Treatments. That will be taking place on March the 28th, 2016. It's a one-day workshop, and in this video I'll be discussing it in greater detail. It's being organized by CNC in collaboration with Marefa Management, a conference organizing and hosting company with an extensive and established track record within the Middle East, MENA region in general, specializing specifically on pharmaceutical industry and healthcare topics in particular. The MENA Pharma Excellence Conference will be from March the 28th to the 31st of March, as I mentioned, in Dubai, the UAE. The purpose of this video is to respond to some initial questions that have been received thus far, and to give you a little bit more information about the workshop on March the 28th. The current state of the pharmaceutical market in the Middle East is exciting, in the sense that it is poised for significant growth in the future. And if one looks at, for instance, data from the World Bank, which projects the growth in the middle income categories of an economy, the Middle East, among other emerging regions, is estimated to double its middle class over the next 15 to 20 years. For pharmaceutical companies and for the healthcare sector in general, what that means is that a doubling of the middle class is going to increase significantly the demand for healthcare services and related to that medicines. And in this sense, pharmaceutical companies will be under additional pressure to respond to the healthcare needs of the growing middle class, not only within the middle class but also all economic sectors. But specifically the World Bank data around middle income growth in the future is very interesting to keep track of. So Middle East is very exciting in that sense. The other sense where there is significant growth is that the growing burden of disease, particularly in the areas of diabetes, cardiovascular disease and obesity within the Middle East, is another area where pharmaceutical companies with innovative products or established products in this area will be required to confront utilizing unique market access strategies or public-private partnerships with public entities to be able to respond to these growing burden of diseases within the Middle East. So for these two reasons, the Middle East specifically, there is poised for significant growth in the future, based on the epidemiological profile and needs of the population in the region, but then also based on the expansion of the middle class in general. Another question that we received is, from our perspective, what are the main differences between particular countries in the Middle East in relation to market specifics? This is an area that we will explore in a little bit more detail in the workshop on March the 28th. But broadly speaking, I think the fundamental difference is related to size, and that is the ability of the size of the economy to be able to leverage market prices and also present opportunities for pharmaceutical companies. Let's get specific. In particular, Egypt is a very large market, large population, well-established pharmaceutical industry, and I think it has its own market dynamics in the sense that international price referencing is really important within the Egyptian context of how the Egyptian MOH is actively looking at different countries in order to benchmark local pharmaceutical prices to keep it in line, if not lower, compared to neighboring countries. So it's a very large market. And if you compare it then to the Gulf region, for instance, where there are a lot smaller markets, pricing has a very different impact inside of those markets in the ability for MOH, public policy makers within each of those countries, to independently influence prices. For pharmaceutical companies, why this is important to take size of the market into account is important because it impacts the optimal pricing that a pharmaceutical company achieves within a region and within the context of international benchmarking of prices and external referencing of prices that takes place. So this is an important dynamic, and in the workshop on March the 28th, one of the first objectives is to talk about the essential concepts of pricing, and talk about this fine balance between access maximization and maximizing access to innovative therapies within the Middle East, and profit maximization. And there's a fine balance between these two areas. I'm very well aware that a lot of subsidiaries of multinational pharmaceutical companies in the Middle East don't necessarily have the flexibility to set their own prices within the region. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's on a company by company basis. But I think it's really important to understand how this access maximization, profit maximization balance is achieved within the context of a pricing model. And this is something that we'll discuss during the workshop in greater detail. Well, what do I believe are the top issues that are currently influencing access to newer medicines? And without getting into the regulatory conversation about access to medicine from a regulatory perspective and making sure that it's available in the local market and obtaining market authorization, I think post-product launch, the access barriers usually result in, the origins of those are from public or private payers. I think going forward, in terms of maximizing access to innovative therapies, it's about establishing partnerships, strategic partnerships with public and private payers. For instance, in the private health insurance market, it's growing tremendously within the UAE, and also neighboring countries are looking at emulating that same type of model of privatization of healthcare insurance and extending it into the broader population. That's an important trend to look at very carefully, and then also it has repercussions for the type of partnerships that are established between pharmaceutical companies and health insurance companies. Marefa Management organized a health insurance conference that took place last year. Carapinian Company was there. We provided some input on how we saw that partnership between pharmaceutical companies and health insurance companies unfolding and potentially being structured around data, around specific therapeutic areas. We offered the Dubai operating principles, which is available online if you do a search of those. For those Dubai operating principles, you'll see how we suggested that could be done. Then also the partnerships that is between pharmaceutical companies and public payers, so ministries of health, particularly within the GCC, where there's efforts for price harmonization. I think there's a need to look at a little bit more carefully around pricing strategies, establishing partnerships within the context of price harmonization, regulatory framework. So I think partnerships is really important going forward, and something that we need to consider in the workshop, and then also at the conference. Another question that we received was about, in my opinion, how can pharma develop a compelling value proposition for its products? I think the compelling value proposition is dependent on two important areas. First is defining very carefully what the clinical value is of a product, given the local epidemiological profile of a condition within a country and within a region, and understanding how that product would therapeutically provide clinical value within that practice. And usually it's quite well established because it's published in the clinical trial. So there's a need to extrapolate that and ask questions: to what extent is this evidence that's available applicable within the domestic context, and can we are the results of the clinical trial a good reflection of local clinical practice? So there's this whole clinical value component, but and there's a lot of work that's already been done in that area. But an area of work that I think is in mostly missing at the moment, and needs to be significantly improved in the future, is around the economic value of a product. And in this sense, I mean, the formal conducting of pharmacoeconomic evaluations, health technology assessments by pharmaceutical companies, and then also commissioning of those by academic institutions, and then also by public policymakers, to better understand what is the economic contribution of a therapeutic agent within a therapeutic area, within a country, within a region, to understand not only its clinical value, but then also its economic value. What sort of benefits does it represent to the general economy? What sort of savings can it achieve for local health insurance companies, for the ministries of health, for instance? What are the long-term effects that are anticipated from the introduction of the product? What are the externalities or the spillover effects associated with the product? Does it impact productivity? So all these type of questions is what typically would come out of the economic evaluation, and it's this area that I think about identifying the value proposition for a product within the market is critically important, and it's this area that I think needs to be further developed in the future. Part of the objective of arranging the workshop on March the 28th is the third theme is applying pharmacoeconomic methods to identify economic value propositions. And what we do at CNC is we conduct these pharmacoeconomic evaluations so that our clients better understand the contribution of their products within a therapeutic area, and we look at a specific country and how it's been used in clinical practice, and then provide their data for decision making and also for pricing purposes. So I think value propositions is really about the clinical and economic value and understanding that, but investing a lot more effort and work around the economic value, which I don't think has been done sufficiently well in emerging markets in general. So another question that we received is, if you could affect pricing and market access policy in the Middle East, what changes would you make? And this is somewhat related to the prior question. And I think value-based pricing or value-based healthcare systems in general is an area that I think requires further consideration in emerging markets. And by value-based healthcare systems, I mean that healthcare technologies, newer biologic agents that are available for defined therapeutic areas, oncology, diabetes, across the board, rare diseases included. It's to better understand how that therapeutic agent delivers an economic value to society in general, because it's been quantified through pharmacoeconomic evaluations. And to understand its short-term and also long-term impact. And I think if we were to implement one single policy, and if I were to look at the complete range of possible policy objectives that could be achieved and policy ideas that have been published in peer-reviewed journals. I serve on the board of the Journal of Medical Economics, for example. I see on a regular basis really interesting ideas that are being submitted or that are being published rather to the journal. I think it's really interesting that many of those policy ideas point in the direction of value-based pricing, and obviously pharmacoeconomics fits within that context. And in that sense, given the momentum that's already been put in place or established in North America and Europe and other regions, there's already established ISPOR chapters within the Middle East, and I think coming out of those chapters, for instance, it could be a great discussion point around how value-based pricing, value-based healthcare systems could work within the Middle East in general. So the next question that we received here is, you're conducting a workshop on market access strategies at the MENA Pharma Excellence Congress. Could you give us an insight on the most important aspects of the workshop and what participants cannot afford to miss out? And this question has been partly answered. I've already mentioned some of the key areas of the workshop on March the 28th, 2016. But let me recap on them. It has three major themes. The first theme is talking about essential concepts of pricing in pharmaceutical markets. It's coming back to this point that I mentioned a little bit earlier on about access maximization and profit maximization, and how best to achieve this balance in a local economy. So we were talking about pricing concepts. I fully understand that subsidiaries of multinational pharmaceutical companies don't have the flexibility or the ability to establish pricing policies within their own region. This changes is different on a company by company basis. Some companies do have that flexibility, others don't. To provide participants a better understanding of the key concepts, key ideas, determining optimal pricing by therapeutic area, for instance, this area, together with the access maximization, profit maximization, and other topics, will be explored under the first theme. So the second theme is presenting value propositions in an integrated market access strategy, and I've already touched upon the value propositions and the use of pharmacoeconomics in that, and integrated strategies. We'll delve into individual and societal attributes associated with the use of a therapeutic agent and understanding their contribution, economic attributes as well, both short-term and long-term, and the reimbursement of new therapeutic agents within the Middle East. And then the third theme that we'll look at is applying pharmacoeconomic methods to identify economic value propositions. So this is cost effectiveness analysis. How does it fit in? We'll look at economic modeling, a case study specifically in the use of breast cancer. We'll show a model that's been developed by a Caribbean company, and we'll showcase that and show you how an economic model can work to identify the economic value proposition specifically for a new therapeutic area in breast cancer. And then we'll also talk about innovative market access strategies to boost access to innovative treatments. So those are the three objectives for the March 28th workshop, and I look forward to seeing you there. And receiving your participation on the day. The last question that we got here is, you have participated in various congresses organized by Marefa Management. Do you think the congresses are a good opportunity for professionals to network and discuss the updates happening in the industry? And without a doubt, Marefa Management, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is an established company with an established track record in the Middle East in hosting and organizing focused specialized events in the area of the pharmaceutical industry and also healthcare industry in general, and they've done a formidable job. A Caribbean company partnered up with Marefa at the Health Insurance Congress that was organized last year in Dubai as well, UAE, and all that material is available online. I spoke about the Dubai operating principles as well, and Marefa Management has done an exceptional job, and the staff has been exceptionally helpful in facilitating the process of bringing a group of experts, a group of scientists and industry thought leaders together in establishing a platform for them to engage, exchange information within the industry and to share best practice. And I think this is what is really useful about coming to MENA Pharma Excellence Conference, is that there are fantastic speakers, fantastic thought leaders in the space, great scientists that are going to be there.